when we get busy in business, it costs us a huge amount outside of business, whether that's our health because we haven't got time to go to the gym, whether that's our relationships because we don't get a chance to see our children grow up, or whether it's just doing the things that we want to do, saying no too often to the things that we would love to do because there's too many other things going on. And, you know, with business, it's, they say, you know, if you create a vacuum, it immediately gets filled with something, doesn't it? Everything will rush into it. And so the problem is you've got to be really strict and actually put some intentional thought into creating the right design for your life and only doing the things that you're supposed to do and that the business values you doing and you love, so that you can free up the space to do this. And it's really brilliant when you get this right, because when I was a financial planner, we went through the Kinder life planning process so that we could help our clients understand really what was genuinely important to them. And that I've shared with you before, those 3 questions. But the last question of those 3 questions, we asked every new client in that, bless you, in their first meeting, one question, or a number of questions, but one question that was, if you only had 24 hours left to live, what would you be thinking about in that 24 hours? And the benefit of asking lots and lots of people that question was I started to see patterns. And the first thing that became really clear is not once, never did anyone say, oh, I wish I'd spent a bit more time sending emails. I wish I'd done a bit more work. I wish I'd done more suitability letters. Like, never. Nobody ever said that. Unfortunately, probably 50% of the people that were above retirement age said, I wish I'd spent more time with my kids growing up, when they were growing up. So if that's a thing, we've got an opportunity to design our life so that we can do what's important. And the benefit of me taking this really seriously, and it was as a result of doing some Tony Robbins stuff, I'd done some other coaching, and then it was that made me realize, oh my God, actually, this is really important. So in 2011, I said, right, I'm going to go from working every hour God sends to doing this properly. And as a result, it didn't immediately start taking 3 months of every year off. But as a result, I got to the point fairly quickly where I was taking 3 months of every year off. And as a result, like I have spent 3 months of every year doing amazing things, traveling the world with Carol and Bronwyn and Fionn, and just doing amazing things, creating incredible memories, creating incredible opportunities, allowing them to see the world and see cultures and see opportunities in different ways. And like, if me taking that 3 months off extended my working time, maybe I had to work an extra year to get to where I would have got to, or maybe even an extra 2 years. In years to come, will I look back and go, was that still a good idea? If I had to work an extra 2 or 3 years, yeah, absolutely it was, because that is the most valuable thing I will probably ever have. So therefore, it's really important. And so that's why mastering our time becomes really important, because it's what we do with that time when we've got intention, when we've got structure, when we've got opportunity, that really makes it special. So when I did a piece on this when we first started the Trusted Team, and I went back to it. I was like, well, okay, so let's rethink this. What do I know now that I didn't know then, or what do I realize now that could have helped explain that better? And I started to think, well, time freedom mastery is really about this kind of 4 steps. It's definitely about the team. It's about who we delegate to, or what we delegate to, because it's not always about people. It's about finding the bits of the business where we can work really intensively and where we love and where we're passionate about. It's then about using different mechanisms to maximize the way that we do that. And then it's finally about eliminating all of the other stuff. So I want to start with team and who or how we go about getting rid of some of this stuff that we don't want. Now, Richard Branson has obviously a multitude of companies, like literally loads of companies. And he spends almost no time working. Well, he spends no time working inside those companies, but he has quite a lot of companies. He spends a lot of time doing other stuff, spends a lot of time on Mecca Island. And as a result, he needs to have great teams in place. To demonstrate how, I mean, Richard Branson, has become one of Britain's most successful businessmen ever. And yet, when he was in his mid-50s, he got pulled out of a leadership meeting, out of a board meeting I think it was for Virgin Atlantic. And the CFO said, Richard, can I just ask you something? Do you understand the difference between net and gross profit? And he went, if I'm honest, no. So he's built a whole load of multi-million pound, billion-pound companies, and he doesn't understand the difference between net. And the CFO says, right, okay, well, this is a fishing net. What's in the fishing net is the net profit, and what's in the ocean is the gross profit. Like, oh, right, I get it now. Brilliant, thank you. So it's all about the who, not how. It's about who you find to do the things that you're not good at, so that you can focus on the things that you are good at. And I've been thinking more about recruitment and teams, and I know that we've had quite a few conversations in recent workshops about finding really good people. And I think the key is to find A players that are great people from a cultural fit and from a grit perspective. They're determined, hard workers, and forget worrying about if they've got the right skills today to do that job. As long as you can teach them those skills, and let's face it, in this day and age, you can buy courses to get them to do that. You can teach them it. If it's in the world of finance, you're probably better at teaching them that than other companies that don't do it the way that you do it, or have the same kind of ethics and policies as you guys do. So teach them the skills, but recruit amazing people. That to me seems like the best approach, because if they've got the growth mindset, the determination to succeed, you can teach them the other stuff. There's actually Bailey Gifford, one of the investment management houses, they don't recruit people from a finance background. They said that's the one thing we can train. We want people from an arty background or from a completely different industry, because they bring to this business something that we don't have. And then we teach them the stuff that we consider ourselves the experts in. So that to me seems like a great player. And Steve Jobs said it in a small team of A+ players can run circles around a giant team of B and C players. And if the more you listen, Stephen Bartlett spends more and more time talking about the importance of people. So his primary role now across all the businesses that he has an interest in is finding good people. And that's basically what he's trying to do, is how do we find great people? And when we find them, we just continually pester them until they agree to work with us, for us, etc. Because it really is about finding the who, not the how. If you want to achieve something in business, and every time, if you come up with an idea today that you're like, I really want to do that, think about who can help me do that, as opposed to how do I do that, particularly when we get onto the AI stuff. There's going to be some AI stuff and you go, holy crap, how are we going to do that? Or where am I going to find the time to do that? So I think, well, who can do that, not how do I do that? Because that's certainly been my approach. I think with AI, you can go really deep on that stuff and you could spend literally months diving into it. But actually what we need is a who that can do it for us. And we talked about the concept of the rugby team being the greatest analogy of, how a team needs different people. And we referred to the Kolbe concept. If you haven't done your Kolbe A, can you just raise your hands if you haven't done a Kolbe A index? Okay, wow. So between now and the next workshop, one of your actions must be to do your Kolbe A index. It'll take you, how long does it take? 10 minutes? Watch the Kolbe concept, which I'm going to get Amy to send to everyone. And read the document that the Kolbe A index will give you about yourself. Because the benefit of that is that when I say, "Oh, right, okay, yeah, but you're a 3 quick start," you're going to go, "I don't know what that means," but I can explain it to you. But if I don't have the numbers, I don't know what that is. So I really, really would encourage you to do that, because what it's going to do is it's going to help you start to see which bits in the business that you're really, really designed for. Your internal wiring is saying this person is a great fit for this type of thing, and yet you're trying to force it into, you're trying to force a square peg into a round hole by doing something different. So really do that. And then with the team, when you're getting rid of, and what we're trying to do today is we're trying to get you to get rid of the stuff that is your rubbish. We want you to go, you know what, that's not the stuff that I love. I don't love it, drains my energy. It gets to the end of the day and I'm like, oh God, I've done a day of writing suitability letters. I am bloody miserable. And so, but yet you also know if you have a day of client meetings, you're like, wow, that was amazing. I could have done that. I could do that all over again. So what we're trying to do is get rid of the rubbish. But what you have to remember, there's a few people that go, yeah, but that's really unfair, isn't it? Because that means you're dumping your rubbish on somebody else. But one person's rubbish is another person's treasure. So we used to have a lady in our business called Deb. Tom knows exactly where I'm going with this, and she's brilliant. So hence Tom stole her from Accelerate. But to be fair to Tom, he did recruit her into Efficient Portfolio in the first place, so we'll let him off. But Deb would come in early to go through it. If you gave her a huge spreadsheet and that she needed to analyze and go, she'd come in early to do that type of work. She was like a pig in shit doing spreadsheet work. And yet that would just destroy my soul sitting there and trying to research, dig deep into somebody else's data in a spreadsheet. So just remember, one person's rubbish is another person's treasure. You're giving them the opportunity to excel at what they love doing, and you're doing the same. Everyone is a winner. The next benefit to doing that is it allows you to really master what it is that you're great at. So there's a lot of talk in sports books and business books over the last few years of the 10,000 hour rule. I know I've spoken about the 10,000 hour rule to a suit. Is there anyone in the room that doesn't know what I mean by the 10,000 hour rule? Okay, cool. So 10,000 hours is, there was some research done that was picked up by Anders Ericsson, and it was done on violinists. And what they said was the difference between world-class violinists and really great violinists is that the world-class violinists did 10,000 hours worth of practice. And it was kind of picked up, and it was originally made famous by Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, which is an amazing book, but it's actually a misinterpretation of the 10,000 hours rule, because 10,000 hours, it's not about, you don't become amazing at something just by doing 10,000 hours of it. It has to be purposeful practice. It has to be. And so if you want to kind of dive into this subject more, there's a whole load of great books. Anders Ericsson's Peak is brilliant. Bounce by Matthew Syed, The Talent Code, Talent is Overrated. They're all about, you're not born, the main concept is that you're not born with set talents. You sometimes are, and you're sometimes born with, like I could put 100,000 hours into basketball, and let's be honest, I'm never, even without this stage, I'm not making the NBA. So I'm not born with certain prerequisites. But Michael Jordan was definitely not as tall as the vast majority of NBA players, but he put in his 10,000 hours and he became the greatest basketball player possibly of all time. And what it does is if we go really deep on something, we become amazing at it. And in Bounce, Matthew Syed refers to this table tennis player called Desmond Douglas. Now, Desmond Douglas was known in the table tennis world as having lightning quick reflexes. He was the quickest reflex table tennis player on the circuit. So they put him through this assessment to go, look, we're going to understand how quick his reactions really were. So they put him through an assessment, and he came out being lower than average on reaction time, lower than the average human being, not lower than the average table tennis player. So, well, how is this guy that's amazing, the fastest reactions to table tennis, actually got slower than average natural reactions? And they looked at his background, and they realized that when he was a youngster, he learned to play table tennis in a room that wasn't so dissimilar to how we probably played back in at school. It was too small a room. And so he developed the ability to read the other player's move. So he knew where the ball was going before the other player had even hit it. But he had read it because he'd been forced to do that because he was playing too close to the edge of the table, really. So he'd learned how to become amazing at table tennis, even though naturally his reactions weren't that good. But we don't become, Lewis Hamilton by driving around London streets in a black cab for 10,000 hours. It's got to be purposeful practice. But when we get rid of the other stuff, what we're freeing ourselves up to do is become amazing, world class at doing the thing that is probably the most profitable and the most important thing that we do within our business. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to fast track. So one of the reasons why advisors like Tom, Tim, Henry succeeded really quickly in efficient portfolios, because even though they were new advisors, we were still taking the power planning and the admin off them, so we could pack their diary with more client meetings, which meant they had more of those Kinder-style conversations, which meant they become really great financial planners and really great coaches. And they were getting exactly the same stats in terms of conversion that I'd got, even though I'd had way more experience, because we got them to their 10,000 hours much quicker. And if we think about businesses like Microsoft, businesses don't grow big by, but Microsoft wouldn't exist today if Bill Gates was still trying to code, would it? There's just no way it could happen. So you've got to get yourself out of the way to free up the business to actually be able to succeed. The biggest bottleneck in most businesses is the business owner or the leadership team or what they're holding on to. The sooner we can get ourselves out of the way, the sooner we have a saleable and scalable business. Because otherwise, you're the problem. And what we're trying to do is find those activities that get us into flow state. So Mihail Csikszentmihalyi wrote a book called Flow, and it's a brilliant book to kind of understand what going into flow state is. But the best way I can describe it is that the activities that you're in that aren't your unique ability, that aren't putting you in flow state, drain your energy. So like I say, you get to the end of a day having done a day of admin, and you're like, oh God, I'm absolutely exhausted. That was miserable. Because you get to the end of a day doing client meetings and you're like, wow, that was amazing. I'm pumped. I could do another 5 meetings. I've been amazing today. And guess what? Because you've done a day packed full of those things that put you in flow state, you've also been way better at it than if you dropped a client meeting into the day where you'd got a whole load of admin. So we're trying to find ways to get us in flow state. And then that allows us to go deep into a subject. Has anyone, excuse the pun, has anyone seen My Octopus Teacher on Netflix? You should really watch this. This is amazing. It's almost weird. It's so amazing. It's about a guy who lives in South Africa who sees an octopus while he's freediving in False Bay. And he goes, I wonder what, and he was doing something really weird. He was like, I want to understand what's going on there. So he said, I'm going to try and see that octopus every day for the next year. By the end of the year, he's probably the world's expert on the octopus. He's seen octopuses do stuff that nobody else on the planet has ever seen. He's gone really deep on that subject. It leads to an amazing documentary, but like I said, he's probably the global expert on octopuses by the end of that year because he's got his 10,000 hours so much quicker than everyone else. So then what we're looking to do with this approach is to maximize the business, maximize ourselves, maximize the opportunity. And if we go back to Plato's 80-20 principle, we can see that 80% of our income typically comes from 20% of what we do. And 80% of the stress comes from the 20% worse clients. So what we're trying to do is focus on the most important bit. We probably have, if 80% of our income comes from 20% of our activities, we need to focus on how we expand that 20% out to 100%. Because that's, like I said, that's where the most profit comes from in our business. And everything else is holding us back. It's stopping us getting to that point. And Ken Robinson would refer this to you being in your element in his TED talk, how skills kill creativity. And of course, we're going to come on to this subject, but nowadays, what I want you to be thinking about when we do the AI stuff is, so I outsource my triathlon training plan to AI. I did do it to a human coach. I still have a human coach, but the human coach I used to pay, I used to be paying him to go and type stuff into, or copy and paste stuff in a platform called Training Peaks. Now AI does the copying and pasting and kind of and basically frees the coach up so that I can spend my time talking to my coach. So how can we be using, what I want you to be thinking about, particularly in the second session this morning, is like, how do we use AI to solve some of these problems and remove the bottlenecks in our business? Because it doesn't even have to be a human now that we delegate to. And how can you automate stuff? So sticking on the same subject, we have the Unleash the Power of AI webinar. I've done that webinar twice, once live, or maybe 2 times live. But you could go onto the website today and go, oh, that's lucky. We have a webinar starting in 15 minutes. That's brilliant. I think I might watch that. And somebody could go on in 3 hours' time and, oh, that's lucky. There's a webinar starting in 15 minutes. We've automated it. We've used technology. I only have to do it once or twice live, and now it's created for anyone to go, oh, brilliant, there's a webinar happening, I'll jump on that because it's the right time for me. And of course, you could outsource this to other businesses. We've started working with a couple of people in the Philippines that are doing a lot of the video editing, podcast editing, all that sort of stuff. So the great thing about the Philippines is that they work while we're asleep. So Amy and I were chatting over dinner last night, and we're like, well, we could really do with that by this morning. So send it to the Philippines person. Guess what? By breakfast, it's sitting in the inbox waiting to be utilized. So outsourcing is a huge opportunity. And I know I've shared it with you before, but one principle that I think is really worth bearing in mind is, somebody once said to me, when you think you can fulfill 50% of somebody's time, it's time to take on the next employee. So because you sit there and you go, oh, should we employ somebody? Should we not? If you could fill 50% of their time now, it's time to recruit. Because they'll be less efficient to start with. They'll need training. They'll need to take time to get up to the stage that you need them to get to. But you'll also, once they're there, find other things that you can delegate to them. So I used to kind of come away probably every other workshop when I was being coached at Efficient Portfolio going, we just need another person, don't we? I could definitely fill another half person's time doing this job. And that's what allowed us to scale. So yes, you can outsource or you can hire. An example of outsourcing, he's not here today, is Matt at Accelerate Advisor Solutions. That's an industry-specific outsourcer. Like I said, we're using philippinejobs.ph to recruit people in the Philippines. Seems to be a much more cost-effective way of going through some of the platforms like Upwork, but that's another good way of doing it. And the diversity of people there is phenomenal. So we've got video editors and podcast editors. But actually, I think we might well employ a chief AI officer in the Philippines, and I'll explain why later on. You can delegate to a product as well. I wrote the Life Legacy Gift book, so that I didn't have to say the same thing to hundreds of clients time and again. It was like I write it once, give them all a copy of the book. They can read it. They can do it themselves. And then finally, we want to eliminate a whole load of distractions so that we can focus on. I know we were talking about this earlier on I was talking about it with Karen. We want to really eliminate the other distractions so that we can really focus brilliantly. Nitesh said something really excellent, which is like, I block out these periods of time and I turn off my phone. I don't want interruptions. I just focus on this work. Because when you're in that mindset, you get like, you're properly in it, aren't you? You do the work better, you do it quicker, you're in that zone. Whereas if you get interrupted, it takes you 20 minutes to get back to where you were previously. And in fact, they did some research in nurses, and they saw an 88% improvement in medicine dispensary when they were wearing a jacket saying "Do not disturb." 88% improvement of accuracy on something that's really quite important. You know, you really don't want them giving you the wrong medicine, do you? That's almost as bad as kind of chopping off the wrong arm. So how can you do that? Well, you can carve out time for you. You can avoid distractions. Some of you would have been here. I'm not going to do it now, but with a switch. Do you remember me doing the exercise where you do the switching tasks? So you either write. It's a great exercise to do, actually. One to do with your team as well. So you write down. If I might do it at lunch if we've got time. It's the concept of the fact that if anyone says, "Oh yeah, blokes are rubbish at multitasking," you can answer and go, "Well, actually, everyone's rubbish at multitasking." It's called switch tasking. You don't multitask. You don't do two things at the same time. Your brain goes from one to the other. So the idea is you write out A to Z, and then 1 to 26, and then what you do is and you time it, and then you do the same exercise again, but this time you go A1, B2, 3. I can't even do it. I've screwed it up already. And your time, you've produced exactly the same piece of work, but it takes you like 3 times longer. It's really brilliant. So I would suggest you do that with your team. So yeah, we need to avoid distractions and build. And if you've got clients phoning you on your mobile or giving them your direct dial so they can call you and interrupt you at a time where you're in your focus time, get rid of all of that. Just allow yourself the freedom to control when you take those calls. Like we would always say, nobody on an incoming call gets to speak directly to the advisor. They speak to the client relationship manager, and that person books time that's suitable in the client's diary. None of this kind of constant interruption. You know, how would you feel if the dentist was just in the middle of delivering a filling? Oh, hang on, sorry, my phone's ringing. I'll just take that call. Oh, yep, we'll book you in for tomorrow at 8:30. No, it wouldn't be acceptable, would it? So just don't do it. So what we're looking for today, and we're going to get you doing some work now, is how we can eliminate certain tasks, automate other tasks. You may even decide you want to sell a part of your business because it doesn't work. Yash and I were just talking about getting rid of some of his other businesses so he could focus on the most important. I've heard advisors selling. I'm going to saying they're going to sell these part of their client base because it's not the right fit for their business, or delegate and elevate it out. That's what I've called the ease escape. And of course, within that, I'm going to come back to this later on, but the inbox, I still say, is the biggest drain on productivity, and we really need to work out how we spend less time in our inbox because it is a huge drain, as well as group chat, messaging, pop-ups on your laptop. You know, it never ceases to amaze me, like particularly when you're listening to podcasts and you hear people that have been that have got pop-ups, you know, like bing, bing, bing on the. You're like, you're in the middle of an interview and you can still hear the laptop going ping, 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 and you know that's hugely distracting. Particularly if I'm assuming they can also see a message that pops up at that same time. So just give yourself the freedom to focus by eliminating the other stuff. One of the ways you can do that if the phone is a problem is there's apps that you can do that with. There's apps like OneSec and the other one ScreenZen will allow you to turn off some of those distractions. And one final piece before I kind of sum up is I heard an interview with Alex Hormozy, who's a brilliant marketeer, and we've talked about him in the marketing space before. But he said in this approach, what he does is he does the 3Ds. When he's trying to get rid of tasks, he said, I'm a control freak, so I struggle with it, like a lot of business owners do. So I go through the 3Ds: document, demonstrate, duplicate. So essentially, he documents the process like an outstanding operation. You have a clear process of what success looks like. Then you demonstrate that process to whoever you're delegating it to, and then you ask them to do it in front of you. So they're copying what you do. So if you are a control freak and you're like, I'm the best person in this business to do this job, therefore, I don't want to, they won't do it as well as me, then that's a good way of approaching it, going, right, okay, firstly, we're going to document it. Then I'm going to demonstrate it to you. And then finally, you're going to essentially duplicate that and demonstrate it to me. And then it'll happen time and time again. And it's a really good way. I thought it was a really good way of communicating how you can do this. Because ultimately, what's it costing you not to delegate this stuff? What is sticking with the current plan and doing the jobs that are holding you back costing you? Is it costing you time sitting on the beach? Is it costing you time with your family? Is it costing you growth in the business? Is it costing you your health? It really is a huge opportunity to focus on what is important and profitable within the business. And of course, this isn't a one-time fix. The benefit of this sort of approach is that you should go through this exercise that we're about to go through every year, because every year you'll go, oh, I've delegated everything I can delegate. Why would I do that process again? And then you go, oh, actually, I could break that thing into 3 things, because yes, that thing takes an hour and a half, but I only really enjoy the first half an hour. The other hour is rubbish. I can give that to somebody else, and somebody else in your team. I go, wow, I'd love to do that bit. That would be so cool. So you've got to go through this process every time. So what we were trying to think about really is, how do we build a team around us of people, outsourcers and technology that can do the things that aren't our speciality, so we can go intensely into the thing that we love, the things that we love and we're really good at. That'll allow us to maximize the success that we have in our business and in our life. And we can also eliminate the stuff that just is a drag and it's just holding us back.